All right, so now we'll just say welcome, all of you. I am so excited that you're here for the Let's Talk Villain workshop. For those of you that most of you seem to know me, but some of you are brand spanking new. So I will tell you who I am. I'm Holly Paper-Toroiha, writing coach and founder of Loving the Process, where I help people with great ideas become writers with great books and scripts. And I just clarify usually at the beginning of these things what I mean by writing coach versus, let's say, writing teacher. It's like, yes, if you come into my programs, yes, I do have a curriculum, a program that takes you step by step through all the processes. But really, as my students will tell you, I am a writing coach, really like almost like a creativity life coach, if you will. Like, I understand the creative because I am one. I've been a writer myself for the last 30 years out in Hollywood, making all the mistakes so that you don't have to. And I know all the things we writers do to ourselves, the way we get in our head, the way we get in our way. And so my goal when I work with writers is always to help them get rid of any kind of blocks or whatever, to really open them up so that they can, my whole stance is those stories are already right there in you, perfect already. I just need to ask you the right questions and in the right place and give you the right space and help you create structure in your life so that they can come out. So that is what my focus is on in my programs. And the reason I'm so excited today is because my students know I just finished a brand new part of the curriculum that I felt was really missing. And it is this deep dive into our antagonists, our villains, because I believe that is what brings a story to life. That's why we end up getting stuck a lot of times, is because we don't have enough force. So I've done my signature brand of a program where I ask you a billion thousand questions to pull out and help you develop a really amazing antagonist. And this is like this is the warm up for that program. Those of you that'll continue on, this is the warm up for it. Those of you that are here that want to continue on, there'll be a chance if you want to, but otherwise you'll get a lot out of this. This should inspire you, and it's free. So free is good. But my goal for the day, like I said, is to get you inspired, to dig deeper and to be braver with your antagonists, and also to see how much fun you can have doing so alongside your fellow writers here. So to that end, like I told you at the top, I'm going to turn this into a writer's room for the day. So I won't do a lot of this just talking at you thing, but just to get started, we'll start this way and then we're going to dive into a bunch of group activities. So the rules of the road are just going to be to get loose and have fun. We're creatives, enjoy it. We get to be weird. It's only us creatives here. We can do what we want. And also to remind you, there are no wrong answers, no stupid responses. Unless, a response is mean. We don't do mean here. We're only nice because the world is mean enough. We just don't need it. Um, we're also, like I said, this is recorded. So if you don't want to be on camera or have it out in the world, then just turn off your camera. It'll be fine. If you prefer that privacy. And then everyone will be participating anyway. I would love for you all to participate, but in the chat is fine. I know some of you are more introverted than others, and so your participation can be limited to the chat, and it will still be counted. Before we get started, we're just going to do a couple things. We're going to do a quick discussion on why antagonists are so important to the story, and then also what gets in the way of us creating these really great antagonists, and then a necessary expansion on the definition of it, and then we'll dive right into the group activity from there. And then I will stick around afterwards for anybody, because we're going to go like light speed through this whole thing. But don't worry, if you have questions, you can save them, because I will stick around after we're done this hour, or you can get on a call with me either way. So we'll We'll do all of that at the end. So hold your questions as best you can. Or if there is a question and you put it in chat and I don't see it because I'm not paying attention, then somebody alert me and be like, hey, there's an important question. And I will get to it. So without further ado, first thing is, why is the antagonist so important? And as I was saying before, I believe it's the cure for the dull act too. A lot of writers, it seems to be a chronic thing. A lot of writers have where they're doing great, everything's going fantastic, and then they get to that middle or over the hump of the middle, and all of a sudden they're like, maybe I actually suck. Maybe I didn't have as much of a story as I thought. Oh no. And it's really not true. What's really probably true is that you didn't create enough of a force, a really good antagonist, well developed, to give more for your protagonist to do. Because protagonists need to overcome something. They've got to have some really, really strong resistance in order to grow, in order to change, in order for things to be exciting, in order for them to get in all sorts of shenanigans and trouble that we want to watch. And audiences need to feel something. And the reason they feel it a lot of times is thanks to the antagonist, because we're identifying with the protagonist, and we need an antagonist that really gives them trouble so that we can feel for the protagonist and really want them to get over whatever it is that they're dealing with our antagonist. And so the more complex and challenging that antagonist is, the more memorable your story is going to become, and the more sort of, yeah, page turning is what we want, where you can't stand to not know what happens next. And so what's in the way of us creating these amazing antagonists? The first one that I see as a writing coach constantly, and my writers know this, is a tendency to want to protect your protagonist. We often really identify with our protagonist. That's a lot of times kind of us in the story. Really, all our characters are us at the end of the day, but we most identify with the protagonist typically. And there's a lot of protection around that, not wanting the protagonist to look bad or look stupid or to fail, or all the things that have to happen to them. As we know, when we pull away from ourselves, we know that that's what life is. Life, a lot of times we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. And so we need our protagonist to have some struggle, to have some pain, to have some heartache, to completely embarrass themselves or spectacularly fail. And a lot of times as writers, we don't want to do that. And so we protect them and we don't create those excellent opposing forces. On the flip side, we also get in the way because we want to protect the antagonist. Sometimes they're, based after people we know, that we care about, that maybe is the well-meaning parent that gave you a lot of trouble, or some sort of nemesis, but at the end of the day we don't really want to lacerate them. We're protecting them. We don't want to make them look too bad, but the truth is, story needs it. It really needs it. So do what you have to do to fictionalize it, or make it an amalgam of characters, or start to pull away from the truth of it a little. And also remember that two things can be true at once. It's like someone can be someone you love deeply, and then also an aspect of them is the part that's been the hardest thing for you to ever get over, or your protagonist to ever get over. So it's remembering that, and remembering it's important for story. You need it. Your story needs it. So don't protect them. We also have fears around getting into the heads of and or loving our antagonists. Who wants to do that? Some of us have really awful, icky, yucky, nasty antagonists, and it's like, who wants to get into their mindset? I worked on a film years ago called Fear.com. No, it wasn't good. It's okay. It wasn't my fault. I just had to do rewrites. But in order to do so, I had to get into the mind of a serial killer, and I was like, ew. But I realized I couldn't write what I don't understand. Like I had to really try to get into the point of view of this, and then I had to shake it off. But I needed to, and you can go as deep or as not deep as you want, but you do have to understand that they have a point of view. There is a point of view that they have. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to, none of that, but you do have to try to find a way to see them as a human being with that point of view and what that might be and why that might have formed. So yeah, us being willing to dive into their point of view will pay in dividends in basically having rich three-dimensional characters instead of these really stock, cliche, obviously a device types of characters that you as readers and audiences know. You smell it a mile away when you see these stock, boring antagonist characters that look like a device just to give the protagonist something to do. You don't like those. We like the nuanced, complicated. Even Hannibal Lecter, he was a little complicated. It was interesting. You got fascinated by him as much as you didn't like him. So you really don't have to like him. People cross the street to get away from the actual actor. I remember his interview saying Anthony Hopkins for years. They'd be like, you don't have to like them, but you do have to understand them. So yeah. So now those are just some of the basics I wanted to talk about first, just to get us warmed up a little bit. Now it's time to be a writer's room. We're going to attempt, which I've never done this before, so we're going to do this together. We're going to attempt to do a lively case study of like 3 different antagonists at once, just to try to like really get present to how much we love and appreciate what these antagonists have done for stories we've already known, in order to get you inspired to make bolder choices with your own. So I'm gonna need, just so you know, 2 of my students to be willing to be volunteers to be spotlit. So you can just keep that in mind, whoever's willing to do that. I'm gonna ask you in a minute, not quite yet. But again, like I said, all of you are gonna participate via chat, because we're not gonna do this. Nobody's doing it alone. We're gonna ask for participation from everybody with the questions that we'll go through. But before we get started, just want to do a quick reminder of the definition of antagonists based on, or my definition for the sake of this workshop and the future workshop, of what the antagonist is, so that we can dive into this discussion. Really, the definition I'm going with is just the one who, either seemingly or in actuality, is the one that gets in the way the most. I always say in my definition, the protagonist is the one who grows the most, and the antagonist is the one who gets in the way the most, who causes that growth the most. So these characters, just as a reminder, really do span the full spectrum between good and evil. I often hesitate to call them the villains, because they're not always villains. Sometimes they're Ted Lasso. But they are the thing that's in the way. So it's a full spectrum we're going to open up to when we're doing this exercise. They are often the most riveting when they live in those gray areas, like I was talking about with Hannibal Lecter, or like mob bosses. We love mob bosses for that reason. We have this endless fascination, and it's because they, on one hand, they do these really, really awful things, and then on the other hand, they're like the best dad you ever had, like protecting and taking care of their family. It's very strange. It's they live in these. It's like they've created their own moral universe, and you need to know what that is. They also are sometimes, in my definition, the one who actually loves the protagonist the most. So they're the well-meaning parent. They're the one that is really pushing the protagonist hard, like all those movies, or like the Coach movies, where you've got the coach that absolutely loves this kid and is not going to let them off the track. They're going to push and push and push. Um, so sometimes that's who the antagonist is, and sometimes they torment, the protagonist from the inside. Sometimes the worst antagonist of your story is your inner saboteurs. It's the protagonist's inner saboteurs. That is the absolute worst antagonist of the whole story. In those particular cases, and in your future, what I recommend with that, I always say, especially if you're a screenwriter, because with screenwriting, it needs to be very visual and out, with a novelist, you can write what's in their head. So an inner saboteur is not as difficult to share. But if you're going to do screenwriting, and if you definitely want to do more show, not tell, I always say, with your inner saboteurs, there are always external allies of that are in cahoots. Like there is always those codependent characters, that are either appealing and enabling the particular bad behavior of your own inner saboteur. They're right there with your bad habits, and they're ready to help you stay with those bad habits. Or also, there's the bully that knows how to poke right at that inner saboteur. There's always someone that pokes right at that thing. So that's a way to make it more external. And that's what I often ask you to choose when we're doing exercises. And then, yeah, sometimes also in a story, they're both. The protagonist is also the antagonist. Like, for example, Marty in Ozarks, if people have seen that, I would say he is both the protagonist and the antagonist, because yes, he has his own antagonists. He's got the cartel and all these folks that are forcing his growth and forcing his change. But really, when you think about it in terms of the whole series, you could almost look at the character like Ruth as more of the protagonist, the one that really grows and changes the most. And that Marty is actually her antagonist. He's the one pushing it. He's the one forcing her in a lot of ways to become who she was. So sometimes they're both. So those are just things to think about before we dive into our case study here. Anyone have any questions before we move on? You can put your little hand up. Otherwise, we'll dive in. Okay. Oh, Teresa. Yeah.
Oops. I keep muting myself. I was wondering, like, if you had an example. Noelle kind of explained my question in the chat about the inner saboteur, and just wondering if you have like an example of like a, in a movie, or is it more in literature where you can use more subtlety with it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of an example that everyone would know. There was a movie recently that I thought of that was, but maybe not everyone knows that this Brittany runs a marathon. In the story, this is a girl that's trying to change her life. It's often in heroines' journeys where someone has got to get over something inside themselves, or maybe even in that one in particular, she, her inner saboteur is she's way too much partying, like really bad habits when it comes to health and substance abuse and all kinds of stuff. And I would say that in that story, she has her best friend is actually in a lot of ways that outer example of that inner saboteur, because she's right there with her partying, yeah, everything's great. And then the second that it's time to change, like, the movie is a lot about her taking control back of her life. And actually, she declares she's going to run this marathon, and she has to do all this stuff to change in order to be able to complete this thing within herself. And it becomes her best friend that's in the way, because her best friend doesn't, she's not supporting the good behavior, interestingly enough.
How about Bridget Jones' Diary?
Yeah, yeah, she absolutely. There's, and it's funny because in Bridget Jones' Diary, a lot of the ways that it'll show up is like scenarios where it's just clumsy or shows up in the wrong outfit or all this kind of stuff that, and there is, I think they even use they do use the inner monologue a lot to show it. So you can. And in novels, you can totally get away with it. It's no problem at all. In screenplays, though, you've got to find that way to show that external thing. But all right, so let's jump into this, and there'll be much more. What I want to do is I want all of you right now, the first little exercise we'll do is, and you'll just put in chat whatever your thing is. I want you to choose a favorite movie or TV show or book, doesn't matter which, but try to pick one that's similar in genre or tone, maybe to something you're currently working on as a case study, something that already exists, and preferably one that most people would know so that we can play with it, like something that's popular and something that is an example of masterful writing, not just something you enjoy ironically. Like it's your favorite because you're being cheeky about it. Like something that is a true good writing piece, that's one of your favorites that you know well and you think a lot of other people would know well. Just start populating the chat with, I know it's like asking to pick your babies, but just start putting them in the chat. Yes,
What?
question.
Movie or a book or a
Or a
TV?
TV show, whatever's your favorite, just in general right at the moment, like something that is a favorite of yours that you know backwards and forwards, because we're going to do a case study on it. And yeah. And then after you've put yours up, just go back through the list people are putting and put a like. I'm going to try to see which are the ones that get the most likes, in order to choose one to work with, or choose a couple actually. So far we've got, let's see. We've got Forrest Gump. God, I love Forrest Gump. Black Swan, Practical Magic, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The movie, not Hulu. The Sentence. The Wizard of Oz. Yes, we all know The Wizard of Oz. Harry Potter. The Patriot. Star Wars. Fight Club. Wizard of Oz. Oh, and also I'm gonna unpin myself so I can see all of you. Chinatown. Oh, Shawshank Redemption, my favorite. The Sentence, another one for the Outsiders. Oh, the Outsiders, remember that? All right, so let me see. Little Women, Silver Linings Playbook. These are great. All right, let me see who's getting the most. So make sure to vote because I'm about to grab it. I see 3 for see 4 for Shawshank. 4 for Harry Potter. So far those two are in the
Little Women has 4.
and Little Women has 4 also. Hmm. All right. Angela, you haven't seen Shawshank Redemption? You need to remedy that immediately. It is so good. So good. All right. Well, because you haven't seen Shawshank, I am going to say, did we say Little Women? And although I don't remember Little Women as much as I should. All right, so we'll do let me ask this. Of my students, which two of you are willing to be the representative of one of those two others? I am gonna actually choose one just to be different that isn't on there, and it's Ted Lasso. Because he's an interesting case study, so I'm gonna do that. But so Ted Lasso, and then we've got definitely Harry Potter. Oh, you've never seen Ted Lasso, Deborah? Well, we probably won't have everyone, but yes.
I want Harry Potter.
You want
I'm-
Harry Potter? Done.
Harry
All right,
Potter.
one other person volunteer as we get started, but all of you are working on this. Everyone needs help.
I'll do Ted Lasso.
And no, I'm doing Ted Lasso.
You're-
Pam volunteered for Ted Lasso.
Oh.
I
That was-
stole it. No, Holly put it on there and I said that. And then I jumped in and I said, I'll do Ted Lasso. No, it's Holly.
All right,
it's
so
Holly.
does somebody want to do Little Women or Shawshank Redemption? Anyone? That'll be, which one, Eloise? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Linda volunteered.
Linda had her hand up.
Oh, Linda?
Oh, I'm good with either one. I could do either Little Women or Shawshank, but Shawshank is like I've probably seen that movie 25 times and it's never enough.
All right, you know what? We'll do those. Not everyone will have seen everything, but everyone will have seen one of these, I hope. So Ted Lasso, Harry Potter, and Shawshank. Let me pin you, and I will pin Noel. This is more for my recording. You guys can all stay where you are. So here's what we're gonna do. We're playing a game. All right. Welcome to the Hollywood Squares. So yeah. So for this one, the first thing we're gonna do is choose from those stories who the main antagonist is. Pretty, can be easy, can be difficult. So for me, I'm representing Ted Lasso, and I say that Ted Lasso is the main antagonist. And my my reasoning is he is relentlessly cheerful and forces all the other characters to grow. Yes, Ted grows to some extent, I believe. But really, at the end of the day, Ted is the one that forces everybody else around him to grow by his relentless stance to what he believes in. He's always Ted from the beginning to the end. So that is my choice for Ted. Noel, what about Harry Potter? And everyone else, feel free to chime in and help people along with your thoughts on the who.
In looking up the I can't.
No, Roy's the one who gets forced to change because of Ted.
And he wants to change, but
Mhm.
Harry Potter, I think because Voldemort and Harry are at the end of the series represented as one. They are, that Harry carries the
Harry.
no, not Harry Carey. Harry has the what was that thing when Voldemort split his soul?
Horcruxes, yeah.
Yeah, that
Thank you, Sergey.
Horcrux. Harry was a Horcrux.
Yeah.
And so Harry, as he got older, kept struggling with dark magic and seeing the actions and feeling the power of the dark magic. Very similar to Star Wars, but the fight between the light and the dark, but in an overarching that the magical world is hidden
Mhm.
from the rest of the world. I see that struggle as an internal quest for finding love, because love is the power that always wins. So for me, the antagonist is, as a whole, fear and hate. That negative dark energy is based in fear and hate, and
Mhm.
it's a false sense of power. That's the real antagonist, because Harry is growing into his own as an individual and discovering who he is without and starting from a place of never having an identity. So I'll stop talking now because I
So are you saying the false sense of power is the antagonist and Voldemort is the example of like,
Voldemort is an example, and Harry says to him, "You will never know love."
mhm,
So he's a representative of fear, hate, and a false sense of power, because it's not true power.
mhm.
He has power based on well, lies.
Yeah.
What does that remind us of? Never mind.
But no, and this brings up a good point that there are many antagonists in your story. And some of them are conceptual, even like that, and some of them are actual characters, and some of them are a location or an organization or there's many antagonists. So what we're toying with here is like, who's sort of the king of the antagonists of your story, the king or queen of who's the one that we can look at that offers the most constant
Well,
resistance
yeah,
in
and
the plot
it's
line.
easy. It's easy to say that it's Voldemort, but I think the real conflict for Harry is an internal fight with himself.
Hmm.
And seeing, because he he feels that power inside of him, with the Horcrux being inside of him, and he has to fight against that through his whole journey.
Hmm. Hmm. Linda, who do you think the main antagonist is? I know there's many antagonists in Shawshank, but
Well, if I were to boil it down to a concept, I think it would be corruption or evil. I think it's personified by the warden, who is basically the head MF in charge, who by his example has all these corrupt guards, and then even people that are within the guard or within the ranks of the prisoners. There's good and bad. It's a classic, really classic tale of good versus evil, just like the rest of them, in my opinion.
mhm.
And can he hold out long enough with his altruistic faith and conquer the evil?
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the reasons why the movie appeals to me so much, is that he there's a few times where we think he's about to give up, but he doesn't give up, and it's um there's just evil at every turn.
Mhm.
We don't even know the extent of the depravity of the people that are against him, and yet it's kind of like with Ted Lasso, his never-ending faith, his never-ending hope, his finding joy in things like music and just simple dignity of having a beer after a hard day's work has such a profound impact on all of those prisoners that it changes their lives forever too. And so, but it's facing off against that evil and not relenting.
Yeah. You just made me think too, time in a weird way in Shawshank, time is also one of the antagonists. It really, there's just so much time they have on their hand, and the way he ends up using his time, which you discover, Angela, I'm not gonna blow it, but you'll just see when you see it, the you'll understand what I said when you see it afterwards. All right, so next question. Why are they to blame for everything? our antagonists that we discovered. Like if you pick one, why are they to blame for absolutely everything? We like to, as part of, that's one of the things I'm going to do in the long span workshop is help you, we get to vent for a while about our antagonists. And so this is, and with Ted, since I'm representing Ted, I would say that the reason Ted is to blame again is because he will not change. Like if we say from Rebecca's point of view, right? He's supposed to actually make the team worse because he has no experience whatsoever at running a soccer team. And yet he's making it better, and the team is coming together and they're winning. So he is to blame for her not getting what she is that she wants. And he also just will not, anytime he bumps up against a problem, he will not let people just get away with it. He'll switch directions on you in a way that you don't expect. Like when he suddenly brought the whole team down to the sewers to look at life from a different perspective, he's relentless in his mind games. We have antagonists that are evil that play mind games, but then we have the other spectrum, the Teds of the world that play mind games and mess with people, and that's why he's to blame, I say. Noelle?
I think Harry is to blame because he immediately looks at Snape as the bad guy, and in almost, especially in the early, well, all the way until the very end. He does not know until he sticks his head in the pensive from Snape's memories does he find out that Snape was actually caring for him the entire time. And so because he just
We
made
all bought it.
and we all bought it. Yeah, but we were led, so we were led down that path, um that I mean, Harry was a teenager. Um he was very much a teenager and going, Snape hates me. And it was, so many reasons. So Harry was a kid. Well,
Lily.
that was a hint about Snape looking after him. Um, and so that kind of I don't remember how that resolved.
But Snape,
Harry.
let's say Snape, because Snape was an antagonist in a certain way. He was a good man,
Yeah.
but he was an like
Yeah.
so how is he to blame for why maybe Harry,
Well, because Snape treated Harry with such disdain in public. And yeah, he was a bully, Teresa, and it was because I mean, he was full of so much grief and loss, but also Harry's dad was a bully to him.
Mhm.
And Harry looked exactly like his dad, James, and Snape couldn't stand, he never saw Harry for Harry, just saw his, well, yeah, but also Snape could never admit how much he loved Lily.
Mhm.
And so that was,
Well,
y-
that's why sometimes they're to
that's
blame their own obstinance.
yes,
Like sometimes the antagonists are like, it's just the way I am, and that's how you have to deal with it. Like
yeah.
they don't bother to explain themselves. They don't explain they're doing it for you for all of
And,
that. They're just
and if you go into the before, the Harry story and how Snape turned into a spy for Dumbledore was because he realized he was wrong when Voldemort killed the love of his life.
Mhm.
And Dumbledore couldn't protect them. And, Dumbledore was a bit of an ass too, in going, well, what are you going to give me? Are you going to, give me something in return for for me giving you a pass on being a Death Eater, but anyway.
Yeah, but those are some of the reasons. Yes, Linda, why do you think which particular antagonist are you? Because we know there's many.
Well, I mean, I would focus on the warden,
Mhm.
especially since he like, to me, he tries to present this image of being this, oh, this holy man. He's got the Bible and he's always handing the Bible off, and he's got the sampler that his wife stitched up on the wall. It's like, oh, look at me. I'm just so pious. I'm so, I'm such a good man. And and he's just, he's, we don't even really find out till the end. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but just to the extent of just how bad he is, and the fact that he employs these guards who are so sadistic and willing to kill anybody
Mhm.
for the slightest infractions. And the incident with the young man who has information, how that happens. It all shows that he's really just he has, in my opinion, I know that antagonists should have some redeeming qualities, but I can't think of one for him. And so it's really hard for me. I mean, he's a complete personification of corruption and evil. And
Yeah.
so the blame, and it starts at the top, and so the
Well, and
blame
we don't have to, they don't have to have any redeeming qualities. They really don't. But we have to understand what their qualities are, like where they came
yeah,
from,
I mean, we understand that
which we'll do next.
he's driven by greed, and he's driven by power, and he's just been corrupted by both.
Yeah, and I love that what he can be to blame for too. This presentational, there's nothing worse. To me, that's such a good character for evil. These people that pretend some of the things that are supposed to be the best, that like the good Christian and the good this, that, and the other, all these kinds of things. And then they're the worst kind of fraud underneath. Is just, yeah, those are the kinds of villains we absolutely love to hate, because they're just, and the level of control he has over people because they are incarcerated is just
Sick.
yeah, twisted. All right, so next question. That was, and something we're going to do in the workshop that's coming up, you guys, is we will look at it from the protagonist viewpoint, which is what we were kind of doing in a sense, but then I flip it on you. So like this next question, we are only going to think from the antagonist point of view. Like now we're getting into the mind of the antagonist entirely. So we're looking at what they do, what they want, and why they want it, that kind of thing. Like, and I've got the easier one, but yeah, you've got to dive into there. So if I'm only looking from the point of view of Ted, I would say that, he, I don't want to give away some of it, so I'll just go to the general of it. I think with Ted, he really wants, two things. He wants to be an example, the person he has a commitment to a certain kind of way of being. But I think he also wants to show people that if they work together, anything can happen. I really do. I think he's a person that understands that if we just get connected and just work together, that anything can happen. And I think, and he tries to get people talking to each other. And I think the reason he wants that is because nobody in his family was talking to each other. Like there's stuff that gets revealed. People weren't talking to each other. And I think Ted's doing pretty good, but that's one of the areas where he struggles is in, so I think sometimes you give the thing that you have trouble with. It's like, if you look at it, he's not expressing himself that much till kind of later, but he certainly is the instigator of making sure everybody else kind of comes together and connects with each other. So, and again, we're just making shit up here. I don't know if that's what the writers intended. But that's what I see, and that's what we're exploring and analyzing that will parlay into some of our own characters. So you're allowed to put whatever answer you want. Noelle, what do you think? What does Snape, if you want to do Snape, do you want to do Snape or you want to do
I think we got to go to He Who Must Not Be Named.
Okay, what does
Um,
he want and why does he want it?
Well, the psychology of Voldemort is that he was created. He was born out of a lie. His mother put a spell on his father, so he wasn't even born out of love. He was born out of a want for something more, and he was not a pureblood. So he wants infinite power forever, which is why he creates the Horcruxes so that no matter how many times he's killed, he will still go on living through the Horcruxes he has created. And what he sees is that the world will be a better place if everybody just does what I'm saying. I'm in charge and everybody is better off because I know better. So he wants that, you know, he wants to have ultimate power and control. He is extremely smart. He is extremely resourceful. He's a survivor. He has survived on his own. When Dumbledore came and picked him up from the orphanage, he had already set in place. Yeah, exactly. Voldemort is very afraid of death. And he wants to purify the world. Nice, real witches and wizard. Yeah. Okay, so Voldemort is very Hitler-like. Hitler-like
Mhm.
in the master race of wizards and wizard power of when he takes over the Ministry of Magic and magic is might. Yeah, it's very Nazi mindset, which I don't like using that comparison, but it's pretty clear.
Well, we're talking about, villains and antagonists. So, and the fact that, we can wax on about this stuff. Again, I'm just saying as it parlates to us is that writers took the time to bother, I guarantee you, to go into whether that backstory shows up as anything in the story at all. The story might start somewhere else and never address the antagonist backstory or the why.
Yeah.
But we have to know it. As writers, we have to know what it is. Like, we really have to take that time. It's all the work that we don't get credit for as writers, but it shows up in the work. It shows up in these nuances. It shows up in stuff that somehow, whether they've said it or not, someone like yourself can then go, oh, why does he want that? Oh, I would imagine it's, how do you know? It's because it's there. It shows up in layers and stuff. And that's what we have to do too. But yeah, great, Noelle. Linda, the warden, what does he want? Why does he want it? You guess.
Yeah, it is a guess. I think that what was that expression, that corruption, or no, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where he's gotten to. He's in charge, and when he comes up against Andy, he knows Andy is smart, he knows Andy's passionate, he knows Andy has this fire within him, and that's a threat, and he's going to do whatever he can to tighten the screws and keep control,
Yeah.
because he cannot have a threat to his little empire of power, money. It's all about control. Even when he has like the prisoners out working out on the streets, and the guy gives him the pie with the money and says, whatever I got to, I need to have this work. So he's going to go take his prisoners somewhere else. I mean, he really has his tentacles out beyond the prison. And so Noelle did make a good point, and I didn't really talk about. I think to me, there's a sub character here, or a secondary character that is an antagonist, and that is Andy himself. Because part of why Andy is in prison is because of his own actions. We don't know whether he's guilty or not. We like to think that he's not, but a lot of it is just his own idealism, his own kind of thinking that he's better, that he's just above it all, and that's why he didn't pay attention to his wife. And so he's on a journey himself, learning about his own issues. But we don't really know why the warden has taken the path that he has, other than he's just been completely corrupted by that desire for money and power.
Well, and I like what you said about image too. Like sometimes people like everything's about their image, their presentation out in the world. They'll do anything. I've known friends who grew up in families where it was all about how they were presenting themselves. And they're stuck in that life where, they have to all act like they're the happy family. That's this, that, and everything's a presentation. But also with him, I wonder sometimes if it's not a little bit like Breaking Bad or others where sometimes people, they step down that path and now there's danger everywhere for their own selves because of their choices. Now they have to, it's a continuous game of whack-a-mole because so many people know that they're a bad person, that they've got to control everything or they'll get found out, so it almost just starts. Yeah.
Eloise makes a very good point. Eloise, you talk about the warden because you're a great champion.
Yeah. But
You guys are so mean. You guys have no empathy at all for the people and the shit they've been through. I mean, the warden, he's a good guy. He got stuck in a terrible situation with his job. He probably doesn't make shit, but his wife is probably harassing him. He's trying to do the right thing. He's a man of God, and God is telling him, and he's just following that path. And so for me, I feel like you guys are, and Voldemort, poor guy, considered, orphanage, adopted. Holy shit, parents didn't want him. Come on, you guys have as an actor who always plays these roles, I really like it when people write something that I can totally go to town with, because you make them people that are possibly people and not just an image of a villain. So I just had to speak up a little bit.
I adore it. And I adore what she's saying.
Huge
because-
fan of these poor people who are just trying to make your world a little better, and damn it, you're not responding. And so they're going to be a little louder because they care about you. They want your world to be better. So all I
They've
can
got
say
their
is,
reasons. They've got their well-defined reasons for why they exactly. And I love that you brought up that point, because I mean they do. Like I had to, as an actor, play Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction, like as a scene study thing one time, and I would the same thing. I'm like, I can't play her if I hate her, and I hated her. I could see no redeeming thing about the bunny cooker there. And then I just decided all of a sudden, I was like, you know what? This is probably the last dance. She's probably been, jerked around first by her father, and then, eventually got into relationships with men where there was probably, because she's a professional lady. And I'm like, and she probably got a lot of married men hitting on her that she didn't know were married. And then, this same crap. And this was the last time. I am not putting up with this any longer, and that she just snapped, and then
there's a reason. And if
Yeah.
you don't put reasons in there, then the poor actors that have to play the parts,
yes,
they have nothing to hang on to.
there
That's
is
all.
a-
I'm saying. You
and
gotta
you
have
do.
empathy.
And you-
Empathy. Mhm.
but you don't ever have to tell the audience what the reason was. But us as writers must know it. That's again so that's why we've got to do this work. We have to know what that reason is, because then we can allow. I think that's sometimes why you can't allow a character to be like the warden and let him be that good of a character, because you haven't gotten to the heart of what that reason is, the depth of the why, so that you can go ahead and let them be as intense as they are about whatever they're intense about. Yeah. All right, next question. What would you say are their greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses? This particular, like, what is the thing they're really good at in terms of getting in the way of the protagonist, and what is their kryptonite, if you will, their weakness, like their thing that they can be knocked down upon? I love your face, Noelle. You look confused, but I'm gonna say,
I'm trying to understand the question.
like, what's their, yeah, what are they good at? In relation to, let's say, Snape, oh no, we're working with the one who will
Or-
not be named. What is his special gift when it comes to being the antagonist to Harry? Like, what ways is he able to constantly be there thwarting him?
The Horcrux. That that split of soul that, was attached to Harry when Harry was a baby and his mother was murdered.
Mhm,
And Voldemort is always, yeah, he's a brilliant wizard. He
mhm.
is extremely bright, ahead of his time. Uh, I'm trying to
He
remember.
can literally get into his mind. That's exactly what I'm asking.
He can
That's
literally
exactly, yeah.
fly. And
Mhm,
especially as Harry gets older and Voldemort, and he starts seeing and feeling Voldemort's thoughts and actions.
mhm.
That's when, it's not intentional on Voldemort's part, but again, they are part of one whole, and
And that's
they
why he's so dangerous. That is why he's so dangerous for Harry, and Harry is because, yeah,
right.
if you have a villain that can get into your friggin' mind.
What? Yeah, neither can live with the other, and where the other lives, or something like that. The prophecy,
Mhm,
that was spoken. So yeah, there's so many different aspects to that, but Voldemort is necessary for Harry to live,
mhm. Yeah,
and Harry has to live in order for Voldemort to survive.
I guess that's kind of the weakness in a way. They're codependent.
Oh, totally codependent.
Yeah.
Their weakness and their strength is that they
Mhm,
are they are with each other 24/7.
yeah.
Because it's also, if we're just talking about, how Voldemort is tripped up by Harry, it's the fact that Harry can see and feel everything that Voldemort sees and feels. And
Mhm,
it gets more pronounced as the years go on, as they become more connected, especially when after Goblet of Fire, when Voldemort finally took on a physical form again and broke the spell
mhm,
of Harry's mother, that
mhm,
Voldemort could touch Harry and not be killed,
mhm,
because the way that the dark magic, um the way that the dark magic, to give Voldemort life again, the way that that manifested was with Harry's own blood. So that broke the spell that kept them disconnected, but it made them even closer, and that tied their thoughts and actions together, especially in Order of the Phoenix.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, see how interesting that is though? Like, and that's another thing we'll analyze with our antagonists is that the strength is he's literally can get inside Harry's head. The weakness is he's codependent on, like you have an antagonist that's codependent on the protagonist in a sense. So yeah. Linda.
With the warden, I mean, just his position gives him this automatic kind of, gives him power.
Yeah.
The fact that he is driven for whatever reason, Eloise, maybe he had a poor childhood, or maybe he's afraid his wife's going to leave him. I haven't come up with that, but
Mm,
if I could interview Stephen King, I'd ask him. But um, I one of the interesting things to me is when we have that Dark Night of the Soul scene, and we think that the warden has broken Andy. And so Andy's kind of going through, just kind of, shoulders slumped, and yes, sir. And yes, I'm sorry I didn't polish your shoes enough. And this is where the warden, he's been so used to being in charge. He's so used to this ultimate power that he's had, that he has developed a blind spot towards is Andy, does he really have control over Andy? Has he broken Andy? He thinks he has, but he's gotten so full of himself that he has not given, he's doesn't see that he's basically screwed himself and ruined himself. He's left himself vulnerable. And it's part of that whole power that he's exerting over Andy. Do my books, polish my shoes, put stuff back in the safe, that he's just gotten overconfident. And that's what ends up being his nemesis in the end, is that corruption and that power that he's had has blinded him to, there being any vulnerability in his armor, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so then he can be, well, yeah, Andy figures them out. Well, with Ted, I realized I skipped over Ted. I think that Ted's greatest strength, for continuing to be an antagonist for all those in the story, is I think Ted is a self-generator. I think he gets his joy that he has from inside. I don't think it's scenario specific or people specific, or I think it's just a thing that he has, that he generates joy straight from his own being, and likes to give it, and that's what his strength is. But I think his weakness is trauma. I think he has trauma from his dad, as anyone would, and it hasn't been dealt with, and now it's, because his weakness also is, as much as he is a joy generator, he doesn't seem to have the tools to deal with his own pains, and it seems to have gone within and caused him this anxiety and even panic attacks. So that makes him vulnerable and weak in that regard. That's where he can fall down and ends up not able to be Ted. I relate to Ted a lot. Hello, Ted. Anyway, we've got 2 more questions on this. So the next question is, there's always a part in the story, where our protagonist gets strong or stronger, has learned a lot of lessons. It's usually kind of near that last battle near the end, where they start to pull out from under those situations. And how would you say that the antagonist in those scenarios maybe doubles down? What's their best tactics? How do they get, try to employ more force? Like, like with the one that won't be named, Harry gets stronger as a wizard. But, what does Voldemort do about it?
But Voldemort takes over the Ministry of Magic.
Yeah, right.
He's got control of the whole wizarding world. And so that's when, Umbridge puts out, is in charge of the propaganda department. So he's got, all of the messaging and, the soldiers, and then he's going after the giants, and what do they represent? But are we out of time? Weren't we just going to go an hour? We're going to.
Oh, shit. I was thinking we were going to 3 in my own workshop. I apologize, people. I'm having so much fun. Well, anyway, all right. In honor of everybody's time, because I have lost some people, I want to say the way I continue on with this is, how do they also, what do they do in the face of the protagonist, winning? And these are things I will walk anybody through as we go through the journey. I'm going to be doing a workshop. Yes. So thank you, guys. I'm going to go back to all of you now. Everybody give a high five for them for playing along. And thank you so much for reminding me, because I really thought I was going for another half hour. I thought, oh, I'm doing great on time. But I am not doing great on time. So yeah, I hope I hope this got your juices flowing. I'm gonna stick around and answer lots of questions for you. But if you're excited and you're enjoying all those kinds of questions, the program that I created is a retreat that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a May 17th and 19th. We're going to blow through the antagonist, but you're going to be using your own antagonist to help you choose the antagonist of your own story, the main one. And we're going to do a deep dive. This was a really quick, we're each going to do a really deep dive into it. Each of the phases of the antagonist's journey like that. And so if you want to come play with us in that regard, if you see the power of the group, I'm going to tell you how to, in fact, even if you don't play with us and you want to do it separately, I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to give you just a little bit of my brand of coaching on that, and just say that first you decide that you deserve a writer's retreat. Like really, because I know life gets in the way constantly, and I always advocate for a little every day, a little bit of writing every day, all that kind of stuff. And I mean it, but I also know that the power sometimes of giving yourself permission to focus for an extended period of time can cause a real breakthrough in understanding of your story, and then get you all jazzed up again for more. So that's the first step, is decide you deserve a writer's retreat, and then pick that day, lock it off. Don't, if it's with us live, you know, the 17th through the 19th, then put that on the calendar. Or if you just choose another time for yourself that you want to do it on your own, actually do it. Actually put it on the calendar. Tell your loved ones and your significant others, I won't be available. Like literally give yourself digital detox, turn off your phones, turn off your, I mean, really give yourself that time to like dive in and focus. And then, you know, decide also, like, where do I want to be? Do I want to be at home and kick everyone out? Or do I want to go to an Airbnb if you can afford it, and treat yourself to some kind of beautiful location to romance your writer self? You know, and then the other thing you want to do is prep beforehand. Like clear off all the shit on your calendar that's going to keep you distracted. Like figure out what needs to get done and what can wait until after you're back. Buy yourself lots of yummy writer snacks and journals and get your comfy clothes and have it all planned out. So all you have to do is think about what you want to do for you. And then show up and let me, the workshop, what it is, what you get is you get 8 sets of these pre-recorded prompts that you'll listen to, where I ask you a billion questions. There's no way you won't have thoughts after all the questions I ask you about your antagonist. So it will develop, and a suggested schedule. You'll listen to the prompts, and then we'll get on you'll get 4 live community coaching calls that are going to be Friday night, and then Saturday night, and then Sunday day. So we will check in like this, and we'll have lively discussions, but there's a lot of not being in Zoom. There's a lot of being with the prompts and just writing and enjoying yourself and exploring and thinking. And you'll also, if you sign up for that, you also get lifetime membership to the Loving the Process network. So you'll be with all of us, all of the writers here, the gang. So yeah, so if any of you want to do that, here's what I'm going to tell you, because I took too long. So I know if you go to my website, which I'm going to give you the link right now, it is now officially up. It is hot off the press. You can sign up for, I'm going to show you. The link is right there, and you can sign up for, I'm going to share my screen. You get either the live one with us is $2.99, and if you get it in the next 48 hours, you get a free also hour-long coaching session with me, and a membership to the Writers Gym for a year, which means you get to go to all the daily writing salons. Or if you want to do it by yourself, if you just want to take all those prompts that you can listen to and write in your own time, however you want to do that, that could be done anytime you want, and that is $99. And if you get that in the next 48 hours, you'll get 30-minute coaching session with me also. So either one of those, if any of you guys want to play with us further on that, that's how to do it. All you have to do is go to my website and you'll see where you can sign up right on the front page. It's there, just scoot down. But yeah, and also any questions, or if you want to get on a call with me because you're like, wait, I need more, and I'll stick around here, you can ask me questions. But if you want to get on a call with me, my website is also where you can do that. You can just book a call. So yeah, I hope, sorry, I got the time wacky there. So I rushed you at the end, but I hope you had fun doing it, and I'm here. So I'm happy to ask any questions right now. I'm going to stop the recording.